Hello students, this is Mr. Ezra. Today we are going to finish up our discussion of how to combine polynomial functions. We've already had the first half of it in the combining functions video part 1. Now we're in part 2. Really today we're going to see more of the same of the types of questions that we saw in the last video. So it might be a good idea for you to push pause, try a few problems, and then press play and see if you're getting them right. Kind of instead of taking notes, using this as some feedback on whether or not you're going in the right direction. So we're going to pick up with question number 6. Now this time for these 4 problems on the screen, we have 4 functions: an f function, a g function, an h function, and a k function. So whenever we're trying to decide which one to use, I'm going to color code them so that we can use the colors to also help us identify not just the letters. So the h function will be blue, the k function will be green, the G is pink, and the F is yellow. So in question number 6, we're asked to multiply 4 times the F function plus 3 times the G function. So if we look at the yellow function, it's going to be 4 times that yellow F function plus 3 times the pink green function, or G function, I'm sorry. And we'll work this out really quickly. So we get 4 times 5x squared minus 9x plus 2 plus 3 times x squared plus 3x minus 8. Remember, we have to distribute or multiply before we add or subtract any like terms. So both of these polynomials have a coefficient out front of them, or a scale factor out front of them, so we're going to have to multiply first. So 4 times 5 is 20x squared. 4 times negative 9 is negative 45x. And then 4 times 2, we get plus 8. Remember, when you're multiplying, you really are multiplying the numbers in these cases, and any variable parts are just going to come down. 3 times x squared is 3x squared, so plus 3x squared. 3 times 3x is 9x. And then 3 times 8 is, 3 times negative 8 is minus 24. From here, we put together any like terms, starting with the largest exponent. So we get 20x squared plus 3x squared is 23x squared. Negative 45x plus 9x is going to be negative 36x. And then 8 minus 24 is going to be negative 16. And that is our answer for 4 times the f function plus 3 times the g function, or 4 times f of x plus 3 times g of x. In our second example, we are subtracting the h function, which is our blue function up here, minus our f function, which is the yellow function. So h is, I'm going to put this in parentheses, negative 2x squared plus 1, minus, and then the f function in parentheses is 5x squared minus 9x plus 2. Remember, we have to distribute the negative into the parentheses that follows it. So we're going to multiply, essentially it's like multiplying negative 1 into this second parentheses. The first one is going to stay, that polynomial is going to stay the same, negative 2x squared plus 1. And then we distribute the negative to get minus 5x squared plus 9x minus 2. Okay, we're going to put together like terms. So we get the x squared parts first. That's going to be negative 7x squared. I've got an x plus a plus 9x. It's going to go second. There's nothing to combine with that 9x. And then the 1 and the minus 2 go together to get minus 1. So after subtracting these 2 polynomials, our final answer is a trinomial, quadratic trinomial, based on the degree of 2 and the fact that there are 3 terms. All right, so our question number 8, in some ways, this is a preview, because the very next topic that we're going to cover in our next video is going to be multiplying polynomials. But in another way, it's review, because this is something that you have done before. You've multiplied binomials together, and we've talked about that when we talked about factoring. So when we multiply h of x times k of x, we're going to take the h function of negative 2x squared plus 1, and we're going to multiply by the k function of 4x minus 3. Really, when you're multiplying every term in the first parentheses times every term in the second parentheses. And in other words, we're distributing the negative 2x squared into the second parentheses, and we're also distributing the 1 into the second parentheses. But since this is a binomial times a binomial, you can still use FOIL here, the first outside-inside last, to get your final answer. Negative 2x squared times 4x is negative 8x to the third power, because x squared times x is x to the third. Remember, you add the exponents together. There's an invisible 1 on that x, so 2 plus 1 is 3. Negative 2x squared times negative 3 is positive 6x squared. 1 times 4x is plus 4x. 1 times negative 3 is minus 3. Since all of the exponents are different, we cannot add or subtract any of the terms together. We get a 4-termed polynomial that is cubic based on the degree of 3. In example number 9, we're going to take our h function, which is negative 2x squared plus 1, and we're going to actually substitute in a 3 for x. So let's kind of do this separately off to the side. We've got to find h of 3, which is going to be the blue function. Let's highlight that blue, h of 3. And then we're going to also use the g function. We're going to add g of negative 4, and that's the pink one. So this question is a little different because we are not finding h of x plus g of x. Instead, we're finding the value of the h function when x is 3 plus the value of the g function when x is negative 4. So we'll start with the h function and just focus on that one, and we're going to plug in 3 for x. So instead of h of x equals negative 2x squared plus 1, we're going to say h of 3 equals negative 2x squared, equals negative 2 times 3. We're substituting in a 3 for x here, squared plus 1. Okay, now remember that this function notation, all it's saying is we're finding the output of the h function when x is 3. H of 3, that's what it means. So we're plugging in 3 for x, and we're doing the math to find out what the function is going to be equal to. Order of operations is important here, or using your calculator appropriately is important here. So we're going to take care of that 3 squared first to get 9. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. And then negative 18 plus 1 is negative 17. So that's h of 3 is equal to negative 17. Now we're going to focus on the g function, g of negative 4. Okay. This means in the g function, which is this x squared plus 3x minus 8, instead of x, we're going to plug in a negative 4. And we want to find the value of the g function when x is negative 4. So we get negative 4 squared plus 3 times negative 4 minus 8. Negative 4 squared is 16. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, so we're going to minus 12, then minus 8. Okay, we can add all of these together to get negative 4. So with the g function, which we can color code that one as well, when the g function has an x value of negative 4, the output is also going to be negative 4. So what h of 3 plus g of 4 is asking us is, what's the h function when x is 3? Well, it's negative 17, plus the value of the g function when x is negative 4, and that seems to also be negative 4. And negative 17 plus negative 4 is negative 21. And that is our final answer. And we can color code this part as well if you want to, just so that we can see. So this one's a little different. We're actually plugging in some values for x to get the outputs, to get the y values, and then adding those together to get a number answer. All right, so we've got a few more examples here. These are actually going to be the same The same functions. I don't remember what colors I color-coded them in the last slide, so we're just going to use yellow, pink, blue, and green. And I'm going to speed up through color-coding the variables. All right, in question number 10, we are taking 5 times the f function, so that's going to be 5 times 5x squared minus 9x plus 2, plus 7 times the g function, which is going to work, so we're going to add 7 times x squared plus 3x minus 8. So we'll multiply first. This is going to be distributing this number in front of each parentheses into the parentheses. So we get 25x squared minus 45x plus 10 for the first distribution. And then the 7 is going to be multiplied into the second parentheses. So it's plus 7x squared plus 21x minus 56. All right, we're going to look for like terms and put those together. So any x squareds are going to go together. 25x squared plus 7x squared is 32x squared. We're going to put the x's together. So negative 45x plus 21x is negative 24x. And we're going to put the constant terms together. 10 minus 56 is minus 46. So we get our final answer here of 32x squared minus 24x minus 46. Okay. In question number 11, we have the f function times 2 times the k function. So we'll first put the f function here, 5x squared minus 9x plus 2. And then this is going to be times 2 times the k function, which is 4x minus 3. All right, so really multiplication is commutative. We could multiply this in any order and it would be fine. I mean, each, the polynomials and the 2. I'm going to just go ahead and distribute the 2 into the k function because it says 2 times the k function. That just is an easy thing to do. We'll keep the first parentheses the way that it is 5x squared minus 9x plus 2. And then we'll distribute that 2 into the second parentheses, which will give us 8x minus 6. From here, I've got a trinomial times a binomial. This is where FOIL kind of falls apart. We can't do first outside inside last because we've got too many terms in the first parentheses. There's a trinomial times a binomial. So in this case, we really are just going to have to focus on 5x squared and distribute it into the second parentheses, and then minus 9x, and then distribute it into the second parentheses, and then 2, and distribute it into the second parentheses. So we're going to have a big long string, of terms that we're going to have to combine together in a minute. So we'll start with 5x squared times 8x, which is 40x to the third power. 5x squared times negative 6 is minus 30x squared. Now we're going to distribute the negative 9x into the second parentheses to get negative 72x squared plus 54x. And now we're going to distribute the 2 into the second parentheses. 2 times 8x is positive 16x, and 2 times negative 6 is minus 12. So you can see a 3-term polynomial times a 2-term polynomial gives us an answer with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms. And at this point, we're going to start looking to see, can we combine anything together? Well, 40x to the third doesn't have anything to combine with, but the negative 30x squared minus 72x squared, we can put those things together to get minus 102x squared. They are like terms. The 54x plus 16x we can put together to get plus 70x. And then minus 12 doesn't have anything to combine with, so it goes at the end as minus 12. So our final answer is a cubic polynomial with 4 terms when we multiply the f function times 2 times the k function. All right, number 12 is another example where we are going to have to do things a little differently. We've got this h function where we are plugging into for x. So we're not combining functions together explicitly. Instead, we're saying, well, if we plug in the 2 to the h function and the -1 into the f function, what would be our answer if we subtracted those two numbers together? So let's plug in 2 to the h function first to get h of 2 equals -2 times 2 squared plus 1. Essentially, instead of an x, I'm putting that 2 in there into the h function up here. Okay. I've got to follow the order of operations. So 2 squared is 4. Remember, we deal with exponents first. Now we can multiply -2 times 4, and -8 plus 1 is -7. So the h of 2 is -7. I'm now going to handle the f function, and I'm going to plug in -1 for x in the f function to get 5 times -1 squared minus 9 times -1 plus 2. So I'm told that f of -1 is what I'm going to subtract, so I'm going to plug in -1 to that f function. I've got to do all of this math again. You can put all of this into the calculator at one time to get your answer really quickly. If you're going to do it by following the order of operations, make sure that you square anything first. And -1 squared would be +1, so that's 5 times +1 minus 9, still times -1 plus 2. And now we can handle the multiplication. 5 times 1 is 5, -9 times -1 is +9. And then 5 plus 9 plus 2 gives us 6. Let's see, 5 plus 9 is 14, plus 2 is 16, yeah. All right, so at this point, we know h of 2 is -7, f of -1 is 16, okay? So we've kind of taken h of 2, oops, wrong color. We've taken h of 2 to get -7, and that's what we're going to put first. And we have found f of -1. We got 16, and that's what we're going to put second. We're going to subtract those two numbers from each other. -7 minus 16. Okay, positive 16. So -7 minus 16 is going to be -23. And that is our final answer. Anytime you're plugging in a number for x when you're combining your functions together, your final answer should be a number. It should be one number. All right, our final example today, number 13 here, we've got 3 times the f function times the h function. So let's see, 3 times the f function, that's our yellow function up there, 5x squared minus 9x plus 2. And then we're multiplying that times the h function, which is the blue one up there, -2x squared plus 1. So we'll distribute the 3 first, 15x squared minus 27x plus 6. I'm going to keep that in parentheses because I'm going to multiply it by -2x squared plus 1. Remember, we have to distribute all 3 terms in the first parentheses. So we'll start with 15x squared times -2x squared and times 1. So 15 times -2x squared is -30x to the 4th power, because the exponents of 2 plus 2 gives us 4. When you multiply like bases, you add the exponents together. All right, 15x squared times 1 is positive 15x squared. Okay, -27x times -2x is positive. Let's see, it's going to be 54. X, and that's going to be x to the 1st power times x squared, which is x to the 3rd power because 1 plus 2 is 3. -27x times 1 is -27x. Okay. And then finally, 6 times negative 2x squared is minus 12x squared. 6 times 1 is positive 6. All right, so we're looking for like terms. We've got an x to the fourth. That's going to be first. Negative 30x to the fourth. We're going to add in the x to the third term. Remember, all you can do is write them next to each other, keeping the signs when you do that. I actually can combine together 15x squared minus 12x squared. Both of those have an x squared. So 15 minus 12 is 3. So that's plus 3x squared. Minus 27x doesn't have anyone to combine with. And plus 6 doesn't have anything to combine with either. So, wow, this is a quartic function. It's a degree of 4 quartic. And there are 5 terms. So it's a very long function when we multiplied those together. If you look at the guided notes, you might notice a spot at the bottom where it says fill in Pascal's triangle and find x plus 2 to the 6th power. We're just going to ignore that for now. You can cross it out. We're going to talk about Pascal's triangle and all of its awesomeness. We're going to talk about how to deal with things like x plus 2 to the 6th power. In the next 2 videos, we'll deal with stuff like that. So that's it for today. I hope that this wasn't too bad, and I'll see you in class.